That's about what it's like. So I might need to sit down, which is why I pulled the chair up. But no, there's uses to being lactose intolerant. You know, I figure if you just give me a whole cheesecake, I'll put those Duck Dynasty guys out of business. Yeah. But although I will admit, on more than one occasion, I have eaten dairy on purpose so I can excuse myself from a situation I don't want to be in. You know, or it's like, oh God, I'm not feeling well. Sorry, in-laws. Yeah. But yeah, I am married. I'm actually, in a couple months, I'm going to be celebrating my 2-year wedding anniversary. My wife is here. I'm actually stoked. Marriage is awesome. It's one of those things I think everybody should do at least once. It's a lot of fun. It's one of the most challenging things I've ever done. And one of the questions that a lot of my single friends ask me, and also if you are married, keep your single friends, because you're kind of this like ominous like warning of things to come, but also this like intriguing like dead body you want to poke a stick at but can't stop looking at. But the thing my single friends keep asking me is like, what happens to your sex life when you get married? Because the answer they want to hear is that your sex life disappears. And it may. It's not that it disappears, it just gets more honest. And I know I'm getting like real for a second, but it gets more honest because all the things that you thought you were good at, it turns out you're not, because she was trying to like, stay around, please. And I don't blame women for doing that, because that's what they're taught to do, by and large. And then by the time you get married, they're like, hey, look, we gotta have a conversation. And I learned this in a very, very singular moment, and I will never forget this. And I was making love to my wife. I was on top of her on this heaving, sweaty mass. I have shed half my chest hair on her at this point. I'm making all those awful faces like I'm in an Ozzy Osbourne video, and I finish, and she looks at me and she has this wry smile on her face. And she's like, baby, I love you. And I'm like, I love you. And she's like, but it's your turn to sleep in the wet spot. And I was like, there's a wet spot? It's like, all these years, and because not only had she not told me there was one, but everyone else hadn't told me there was one before that. And I was like, that's how I knew our sex life had gotten more honest. And I feel better for it, it's great. Yeah. Who here reads the Time Standard? Yeah, that's what I thought. A little while ago, I have a nephew who lives in town. Well, I guess his mom does too. But he's 5, and he fell out of a second-story window. And he's okay. I mean, fell out of a second-story window, landed in some bushes. It's out of the apartment they live in. And fire department came out, police came out. And I write for Savage Henry. I know we have typos and we're gonna have terrible, syntax errors and all that stuff, because hey, that's not my full-time job. But the Times Standard, you would think that their copy department would put a little bit more discretion in the things that they post there. And Times Standard came out, they reported on my nephew falling out the window. It was on the front page the next day. Said, happy ending for 5-year-old. I'm not even making this shit up. And I'm like, fuck, the kid fell out a window, he didn't get a massage, man. And what's even better is that the reporter that came out goes up to him, his name is Jake, and he says, hey Jake, what was the worst part about the whole experience? And he's fucking 5 years old. He's like, falling out the window and landing in the bushes. It's like, what do you think is the worst part? Oh man, I love kids. Kids are great. My wife and I talk about having kids, and while she is the more reasonable one in the situation, who asks the questions like, are we ready? Is our relationship in the right place? Are we doing well? Do we have enough money? Are we working the right jobs? Is our house big enough? I ask these like crazy weirdo questions like, Why do babies wear shoes, and what does breast milk taste like? And now you know why we don't have kids yet. Oh man. Like I said, I write for Savage Henry. I do this thing where I like to pretend I'm a journalist every few months. I write this letter every time around this time of year. I write this letter to the Reynolds Company. You guys know the Reynolds Company? Yeah. What do they make? Turkey bags. They make turkey bags. That's right. And I write a letter to them and I say, hey, Reynolds, why do you send 4 million units to a county of 120,000 people between the months of July and September? Is there anybody in your supply chain, some warehouse goon or VP of supplying, that says, hey, why are we sending a pallet a week to the Willow Creek Rays? Is something wrong here? And I haven't gotten a response. And I finally got one after 3 years of writing them. And it was a very short email, and there was nothing in the body. It was actually all in bold and caps in the subject line. And it just said, shut the fuck up. Please don't ruin this for us. I think the turkey bag phenomena came to a head when I was in a liquor store in Redway, and I walk in there and I saw turkey bags for sale, like in the racks where you see like the junk food and everything, but in the bag with the turkey bag, there was a time card. And I'm like, well, actually that makes a lot of sense, but where's the union application and the workers' comp form? I mean, I don't know. But it's the joys of living in an area like this, right? I mean, we get to experience, a giant billboard in the freeway that says it's turkey season, and we all know what it means without any reference to anything else. Right. But yeah. Hurricane season's coming up. And it's one of those times where I like to remind myself, like, oh, hurricane season's coming up. I'm really glad I don't live there. I'm glad I live on the West Coast where, earthquakes strike us without any warning. But at the same time, when earthquakes strike on the West Coast, and the people who live or their houses aren't destroyed, they leave because they're like, hey, aftershocks may happen. And they're like, yes, aftershocks may happen. I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. When the hurricane's coming, people know it's happening days in advance, and there's still that guy who's like, oh, this house is mine, I'm gonna stay here. And it makes me think it's because the way we name hurricanes is not at all menacing. They need to name hurricanes something that will strike fear in the hearts of the people to be like, you need to leave, quick. Don't name Irene or Isaac or Katrina, all those names that we'll never name kids after the earthquake, after the hurricane hits. We need to name it something crazy, like the next time a Category 4 hits the coast, we just need to name it like the first 4 Black Sabbath albums. So that way when the news hits and they're like, there's some, hey, well, the first 4 Black Sabbath albums destroyed the Mississippi coast last night. It's like, that's, yes! Or better yet, let's just call it the motherfucker. So that way when they interview some dirt farmer in Louisiana and they're like, sir, how was your experience treated you? God damn you, motherfucker! I was like, I'm gonna end on a story about how I showed my wife a picture when I was a teenager, and it showed her a lot about me. I was one of those kids. I had long hair. I wore all black. I had a trench coat, and I graduated high school in the year 2000. And when I was a senior in high school, I was in Palos Verdes, California, which is like this no. And it's part of Los Angeles. And I don't know if you guys remember, in 1999, the Columbine school shooting happened. And I saw that happen on the news, and I was like, God damn it. Because guess what I wore every day? And the guys who shot all those people wore all black, had a trench coat and long hair. It's like, oh, awesome. So I was walking to school, And I didn't have anything else to wear, walking to school. People are driving to work, fuck you! Like, I mean, just, it's terrible. I'm like a 16-year-old kid. And one guy was driving along, literally rear-ended another person, or car, and got into an accident, and because they were too busy staring at me. And I was like, oh, fuck. He gets out of his car, blames me for the accident, says it's my fault because the way I was dressed caused the accident. He's gonna sue me and for everything I'm worth. And that's one of those moments I will never forget. It's one of those moments I made one of the first adult decisions of my life. 16 years old. And I looked him straight in the eyes. He's asking me all these questions about where I live, my address, phone number, all these things. And I did the only mature adult thing I could think of. And I followed him home, and I shot him and his family in their sleep. My name is Josh Duke. Have a great night, everybody.
Josh Duke, everyone.